All right, so in this video, we're really not going to go over too much. I'm just going to be pointing out that there's going to be a transition that is going to be occurring on this channel where we're going to slow our roll on focusing on the universe at the foundational level, where we're talking about the general principles of natural law, what natural law actually is. We're going to be continuing to talk about that stuff, but we're going to be doing it more closely in relation to the human condition because we're really at a point now where we've come to understand the foundations of our universe, understanding our reality, how we create it, reality creation formation, all of that stuff. And what you should understand at this point, or you should have an idea of, and I'm just going to clarify it if you don't, and it's okay if you don't, totally on me because I'm not communicating this to you. But really, where all of the interesting stuff is actually occurring in our universe is at the very human level, at the human level. And so our focus has to turn to the human condition, to human consciousness. And as we talked about, when we talked about consciousness, when I introduced you to that topic, there's three aspects to our consciousness. There's thought, emotion, and action. And we really haven't talked about these three expressions of consciousness in that much of detail because we had to talk about how this universe is actually functioning and these realities that we find ourselves in and how they are formed. We had to start there. We had to start at the big picture. And now we're at a point where we can continue talking about the big picture, but we can't do it without adding the human component to it. The human condition is separated by three aspects of our consciousness, which is thought, emotion, and then action. And so we have to come to know both thought and emotion because it's our thought and emotion that determines our behavior. And if we know our thoughts and our emotions, then we can learn to control them. And in doing so, we actually gain control of our behavior, of our actions in the real world. And so that's when everything is working together. That's when human consciousness at the individual level is working together, creating a reality here on Earth that we actually want to live in. And so, moving forward, everything that we're going to focus on, which is thought and emotion, we have to understand we're solely focusing on thought and emotion because we want to get control over our actions in the real world, over our behavior in the real world, and it's our thoughts and emotions that are in control of our behavior in the real world. And so in order for our behavior and action to occur, in order for you to do something, in order for you to start a business or get to work or wonder why you're working so hard day in and day out, you need a motive behind that action. And that's what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of weeks, the motive behind the action, the motivation. Okay? And everything that has to do with motivation, has to do with motion, with you getting in motion. And what does that word sound like? Getting in motion? Sounds like emotion, and there's a reason for that because that's what emotion is all about. It's our drive to do things. It's our wanting need to do things, okay? So what is emotion? Emotion is intention. Emotion is purpose. Our emotion is our drive to do something. Our emotions is what gets us to take action, and it doesn't need rational thought to do a damn thing in order for action to be taken, okay? So just think about a dog, okay? A dog starts chasing a car, right? Starts chasing a car down the street. The dog doesn't think, why am I chasing this thing down the street? The dog doesn't even know why or what it's going to do when if it ever actually catches the car. What is it going to do with that car? It's 3 times its size, 4 times its size, way heavier. It can't bite the thing. So what is it doing? It doesn't know why it's doing it. It doesn't matter because the dog was just doing that because it made the dog feel good because he was acting with instinct, with purpose, and that made the dog feel good and excited for a moment. And then afterwards, the dog's like, "Well, I don't even know why I did that," But that's just the dog, with me imbuing my consciousness onto the dog. The dog doesn't even have that thought process, okay? And so the why really is the thought. And we're going to talk about the thought much later on. But first, we have to really focus on this human emotion and understanding what this human emotion has to do with purpose and intention and meaning and all of this stuff. Because we can all rationalize the idea of hard work. We can all rationalize the idea of persistence, okay? Because, just looking at it objectively, okay? We understand that if you persist, if you continue to work on something, then you will be successful on whatever that thing that you're trying to work on, okay? You'll either be successful at it or you'll die in the process. And then if you die, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that's if you never quit. But if you add the quit to it and you say, well, I'm going to quit at X amount of time, then the only way that you fail is when you quit, is when you lose your motivation to continue working. And so we really got to focus on that because we don't want to quit. Okay, we want to find a way to keep our motivation going, to keep our drive going, and understand that this is all tied to purpose and a moral purpose, because this is what's going to allow us to continue to will ourselves to persist and to continue working even when we don't even know why we're doing this anymore. Okay, and remember, we got to work these two things together. So if you have a why and a willingness to persist, then you're golden. You're golden. You'll never quit. You'll never, because you'll ask yourself, why am I doing this? And you'll actually know why. Okay. But let's first start by understanding our emotions and then move on to the thought later on. Okay. So those with a strong sense of moral purpose are willing to persist. Those with passion are willing to persist, even irrationally, even against against better judgment, against health and wealth. And so, really, what is passion but a strong emotional impulse to struggle and endure for something? And this is defiance in the face of evil. We're going to talk about what that means so it doesn't sound so weird. But in the next few videos, what we're going to talk about is emotion. And we're really going to do this without talking about too many, without breaking emotion down into like positives and negatives. I'm going to explain what these what perceived positive and perceived negative expressions of emotions are, because we have emotions that we've labeled as names, which is interesting and unique. We have like anger is a negative emotion, frustration, resentment, but and then we have positive ideas of emotions that make us feel good, which is like happiness and pride and joy and stuff like that, and confidence. But we have to first focus on the idea that all of this emotion is, whether positive or negative, however you want to perceive them, all of it is designed to get us to take action. Okay? And so we have to start there, and we're going to start there. Remember, this is just a video. We're not getting too deep into any of this stuff in this video. I'm just introducing you to what we're going to be talking about, which is humanity, the human condition. And so, the only difference between experiencing a perceived positive emotion and experiencing a perceived negative emotion is based on morality, okay? And this is the interesting thing about talking about this stuff, because morality is the knowledge of the objective difference between right action and wrong action, the difference between right and wrong. If you feel negative emotion, then you're doing something wrong. And if you feel a positive emotion, then you're doing something right, okay? This is our intrinsic connection to, it's our conscience, and that conscience is a connection to success, because if you do something correctly, you do something right, then you will have a higher probability of being successful. Just think of a test, okay? The test just says, what is 2 plus 2? 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's right. That's correct. That's morally good, okay? And that also means, if you answer the question correctly, that you succeeded in the test. You got 100%. But then let's say that you answer the question, what's 2 plus 2? And you said 2 plus 2 equals 5. That's wrong, okay? That's all that this means, all right? We have to understand that that's all that this means. And what that wrong is tied to failure. Failure is not necessarily a bad thing, because failure is how we learn what the correct answer is. But in that particular situation, you will not be successful on that test because you answered the question improperly. And so that's going to make you feel not so good because you didn't succeed, okay? So that's an interesting thing to keep abreast of, okay? Or be aware of. And so, when it comes to emotions and success, it becomes important to know the difference between right and wrong, because feeling good, experiencing positive emotion naturally and obviously, and as stated in the previous video called Natural Laws Expressed in Our Biology, it makes us feel better, and it literally makes our cells grow better because it releases certain chemicals within our brain that changes our environment. It makes us feel good, and then and that's compared to feeling bad emotions, which increases our cortisol levels and makes us feel not so good and literally makes us not well. And so we have to remember that it's not the goal of our emotional state to feel good, okay? That's a byproduct of being successful, being correct, of being right, okay? The goal of our emotional state is always to get us to take action. It doesn't want you to just feel good, okay? Because if you're doing wrong action, if you're doing things improperly in your life, then it needs a way to tell you that you're doing something wrong and improperly in order to get you to do right action. And so, if you're feeling negative emotions, it's to get you to take right action, because right action will make you feel good compared to wrong action. All that I'm describing here is what is known as our conscience. Okay, this is something that we come with, which is fascinating. We come with a conscience. And somehow our conscience really has been lost in the education system, really across the world at this point. But that's okay, because I'm here to talk about our conscience and bring it back into the fold, because our conscience works whether we're consciously aware of the objective difference between right and wrong, or whether we're not. And it already knows what is right and what is wrong, and it'll make you feel the way that you're going to feel accordingly. However, you have to consciously know it. You actually have to consciously know your conscience and morality, which is of which our conscience is based upon, in order to understand why you feel the way that you feel. Okay? And so, in order to maximize feeling good, which is what we would want, really, because feeling good grows our cells, makes us feel better, makes us, lets us know that we're moving in the right direction, even if we can't see the end goal in our sights. In order to maximize feeling good, we have to first come to know the prerequisite knowledge of morality, the objective difference between right and wrong behavior, because you first have to know your rights and know what's wrong so that you can do what is right with confidence. Because right now, a lot of people, the vast majority of us, we have a tendency to not know the objective difference between right action and wrong action, right behavior and wrong behavior. And people are using our general lack of knowledge of the objective difference between right and wrong, our general lack of knowledge of morality, to trick us into believing that certain things are right when those things are wrong, and also, likewise, making us believe that certain things are wrong when those things are perfectly right and correct. Okay? And so once you know this morality stuff, you're not going to need anyone to tell you what is right and what is wrong, because you'll know it and can deduce it from first principles thinking, from the general principles of natural law, and through your feeling and through conscious knowledge of what is right and wrong, through conscious knowledge of your conscience. Understand that those words are very similar for a particular reason, and you'll be able to figure out what right and wrong actually is, not just for yourself, but for all situations. And we're going to talk about that. And that ultimately means that no one can lie to you. You'll know when somebody is lying to you, or if they're accidentally lying to you because they don't actually know what is right and wrong. You will know what is right and wrong, and that'll be able to help give you an opportunity to make better decisions in your life, and ultimately no one will be able to trick you. And in such a state, you actually become master over your domain. You don't need anyone to tell you what is right and wrong. You're going to become your best teacher by the end of this, because you're going to be able to deduce what is the correct thing. And I'm not saying to reject people who are trying to help you and all that stuff. I'm just saying sometimes people try to help you and they don't actually know what is right or correct, and they can really mess you up. And if we can start at a base level where we at least know what right behavior and wrong behavior actually is, and then work from there, we're going to have a higher probability of being able to tell other people, no, I don't think that that's right, and then explain why, be able to explain why, which we're going to learn in the thought part of this process, because the reason why is all based in logic and understanding and inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. We're going to be spending a whole lot of time on that later on. I just want to get through this video first. So ultimately, emotion is what helps determine meaning in our lives, purpose in our lives, drive, motivation, defiance, passions for ourselves. Consciousness is the basis for what determines human morality and human values. Emotion is an aspect of consciousness that we need to come to understand if we want to expand our consciousness to a great degree, because emotion is what's going to get us to take massive action in the real world. And let me explain what I mean by this. By these aspects of consciousness, by diving deeper into these three separate aspects of consciousness in the next video. We're going to be talking, I'm really going to break down what thought is, I'm really going to break down what emotion is, and I'm really going to break down what action is, and how to unify these three things in a meaningful way that'll make you into a more successful being in all walks of life. And I'm super excited to talk about this stuff, because I don't feel like people are talking about this stuff nearly enough. I don't feel like people who are tuned into the entrepreneurial spirit are tuned into what is right action, what is wrong action, and that can really make things look pretty wonky out there. And so that's what we're going to talk about in the next video: thought, emotion, and action, and the unification of these three things. And so I'll see you in the next video.